Hey guys, how's it going? Today I wanted to talk about the subject of, was life easier in the past? Well, certainly I don't think so. I know that a lot of people, when they say, well, when I was a kid, we used to walk 5 miles in the rain or 5 miles in the snow in order to get to school. Well, they are kind of exaggerating, but at the same time, I do think that life is probably easier nowadays. If you really think about it, we have air conditioning, we have heating, we have internet, we have food that is readily available in any supermarket. We don't have to hunt. We have cars that are pretty readily available, and we have also public transportation, and we have a lot of things such as pensions and social security that are part of what we pay for in our taxes. So saying that life was easier in the past doesn't seem like it would be true, because if you really think about it, okay, in the Middle Ages, let's be real, you can be romantic about the whole Shakespeare thing and all that stuff, but you got to think that in those days they had the plague, people weren't taking showers, so people smelled. They didn't have sewers. They had to invent sewers in some way, and they had to find a way to get all their trash out, which led to rats coming in and a lot of dirt and a lot of things, which basically did lead to our modern society, which is what we have nowadays. But you got to think that in those days, if you had to go to the toilet or whatever, you'd have to go in a bucket and basically find a place where you had to throw away all the stuff, and if it stayed in your house, well, it would smell. And also you got to think that they didn't have fridges and they didn't have supermarkets. So yes, one thing that was good was that obviously everything was organic, I guess, but there was such a level of filth, and there were no preservatives and stuff like that sometimes you would get actually stuff that wasn't the best. If you really think about it, meat, for example, in French culture, they have a lot of sauces which are really delicious, and they can be based on vegetables or like pepper sauces or mushroom sauces or stuff like that. But the reason that they had invented them in the past was to kind of mask the taste of the meat, to hide it, because sometimes it would go bad and they'd still have to serve it. And yeah, so we don't really have to eat rotten meat nowadays, except if you go to fast food places and stuff like that, which they always have debatable meat. But yeah, saying that the past is better than the present doesn't seem very realistic, because we just have so many things. If you really think about it, just 20 years ago, I had like grandparents in Italy, and just being able to call them was difficult, because yeah, you could call them, but the calls were so expensive that you'd end up spending weeks without doing so. Nowadays you could just go on FaceTime or Skype or any of those apps on the phone, and you can easily call. And then I think that because of all the cell phones and stuff like that, calling to a foreign country has actually gotten much cheaper, because they have to have competitive rates. So yeah, and then also one thing that you got to think about, in the olden times, we didn't, I mean, now we're talking about a long time ago, you'd have to build your own house, and you'd have to hunt, and if you didn't have enough water in your area, well, what did you do? You'd have to basically be a nomad and go to different places and find other places to go to. And yeah, that's really tough. It's because it's not that easy, right? To hunt and on top of hunting, it's not like in movies where you hunt and then you can just cook the animal. You'd actually have to basically like take it apart and all that stuff. And then on top of that, you'd still have to even like go scavenging and go looking for berries and fruits and all the good stuff, So yeah, I don't really think that the olden times was better than the present times. I know that people like to be romantic about it and romanticize the fact that they had the beautiful dresses for the people in the castles and they had real courtmanships like in series like Downton Abbey and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. In those days, basically, women had to wear corsets and they sometimes suffocated and they'd have to get ribs taken out, and also they were forced to marry people that they didn't want to marry, and it was all about basically getting your family to be bigger than what it is, if that makes sense. So nowadays at least we have free love, and people say, oh well, stop wasting your time watching TV. Well, you could say the same thing about stop wasting your time reading a book, because yeah, it's good to read books, but it also depends what you're reading. If you're only reading romance novels or sci-fi stuff that has nothing to do with bettering yourself, well, you could also say that maybe you're also wasting your time. And that goes for TV too. If you're basically watching reality TV stuff 24 hours a day or high-speed pursuits, then you're not really learning anything. But if you were to watch a bunch of documentary stuff and learn a bunch of things, well, wouldn't it be kind of similar to reading a book? I guess that in our heads, the fact of being in front of a TV isn't a really good thing. But I like it, and I like books too. But at least now we have a choice. In the old days, not even that long ago, if somebody wanted to tell us a story, we'd have to hear that person telling us. And yeah, there was more of a social aspect in the old times where you'd go more to bars and stuff and taverns and stuff like that in order to actually socialize and talk to people. But it also depends on really what kind of conversation you're having with that person, because if you're just having small talk and there's no point to anything, well, I'd much rather be at home and do my own business, Then I don't really have to think about it. But that's just my point of view. But that being said, I think nowadays we have it much, much easier than the old times. Of course, we always have the former generation reminiscing about the past and saying how it was better. But it's just that we tend to have this thing where we get attached to our childhood, and I think it's because we used to worry less. And also we, as time passes by, we tend to romanticize all memories that we have. So anything that happened even 10 years ago, you think, oh, these were simpler times. But it's because I think our brain tends to want to forget the hard stuff, and it just kind of remembers the good things, because why would we want to remember bad things anyways? I guess it's a word of caution, but at the same time, we don't want to create the same mistakes. But that being said, we also want to have a good life. Well, that's it for today. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.